Every idea has a type. This is a chunky class. I hope you're in the mood for it. It's going to feel a little intense. So, in this class, we're going to look at the different kinds of ideas that are most common in the world of advertising. And we're going to do that because the word idea can masquerade as everything and nothing. We've discussed how sometimes we say the word idea in front of a thought that is not an idea, that is not a lateral thought, that is not a combination of at least two things that don't usually belong together, and how saying it is an attempt to signify importance. We've also discussed how we often use the word idea like we use the word thing. Just randomly throw it into a sentence, even though there's no real reason for it. And so today we're going to try to pull apart a lot of the common ideas that appear in advertising. And we're doing this because to use jargon in an honest way will save you heartbreak. This will feel potentially confusing if you're new to this material, and if you're not new to this material, you might actually agree with some of the definitions that I've put down here. I would just remind you that if you disagree with it, that is totally fine. It's awesome. Feel free to use words the way you want to use them. This is the way that I've understood the words over the years. So here we go. Here are 16 types of idea in advertising. What I'll do is I'll go through them and explain them very, very quickly. And then I'm going to show you this imaginary company, Hello Halo, and I'm going to apply Hello Halo to these ideas. It could feel a little messy, but I promise you that I've thought about this stuff a lot to get to some kind of clarity. Promise, promise, promise. The first idea is a business idea. And so a business idea is simply what the company does that's novel. Hopefully novel. I know a lot of people would say you don't have to start a business based on anything that's particularly unique. And I'm sure there's research out there that suggests that many businesses that are successful don't actually start with anything that's unique. A product idea is something novel that people can buy from the company, and I'm using the word product in a relatively loose way to encompass the word service as well. So it's just a thing that people can buy from the company. An idea, something that's hopefully novel, that doesn't exist elsewhere. Brand essence, a vague phrase that anchors the brand strategy. Brand purpose, how the company serves humanity. Brand promise, what the brand promises to deliver to its customers. A brand idea is what the brand stands for that's novel. A brand platform is an idea the brand can stand on for a good length of time. A brand tagline or slogan is a short phrase that brings to life what the brand stands for and is on most pieces of communication, possibly all, it depends. An advertising idea is an idea that repeats in every communication across all channels. Sometimes it's different to a campaign idea. A campaign idea is a subset and shorter-term execution of the advertising idea within a particular campaign, in cases where the advertising idea and campaign ideas differ. A non-advertising idea is a concept that solves a problem and isn't advertising-centric, yet it may get advertised. A content idea is agency or marketer-produced media that isn't an ad. A social idea is an idea born from the natural behaviors and attitudes of a social network. A platform idea is a technology-driven idea that can become critical to the business. A tactic is a short-term activity that without strategy can worsen long-term outcomes. We'll talk about that later in the course as well. Execution is the critical, essential, finer points of an idea. Often art direction, for example, but not just art direction. Now, it's hard to define these things in a sentence because they get used in messy and muddy ways, and to lay them out like this might seem painful, but I've needed to keep a bank of definitions of these words over the years because they get used differently in different kinds of agencies and in different cities, different regions. And so I've had to focus on what are we talking about, and hence here we are. And now I'm going to go through them. Here's a walkthrough of the 16 types of idea in advertising. And as I mentioned before, we're going to use an imaginary company called Hello Halo. So we'll start by talking about business and product ideas. So the business idea is what the company does that's novel. A product idea is something novel that people can buy from the company. So here's the thing. Businesses often start as products or features and hope to become businesses. You might have had a bunch of ideas over the years or spoken to friends who've had ideas over the years where it's really just a feature, right? And so for Hello Halo, Perhaps someone's come up with this idea that it's a website that can collect Halloween movies. It aggregates Halloween movies. Now that by itself, it's easy to replicate. It's not much of an idea. It would have to have some amazing, unique movies or incredible user experience or pricing or something else to make that stand out at all, because it's just too easy for somebody else to do. It's not really needed, right? It's a feature. Then we imagine that whoever's come up with this incredible idea of Hello Halo, it's just a bit of fun, tries to think about how that feature could connect to other features, other products, and potentially get to some kind of a business idea that would allow it to have a catalog of products or services over time. And so the founder of Hello Halo starts to think about offering a year-round Halloween subscription box service. I know that's of the fashion now, or has been for several years. And so we start to build out this catalog of things that can fit under this business idea of Hello Halo, a business that exists to give people a taste of Halloween whenever they want it. This is where the business starts. When we look at brand essence, brand purpose, brand promise, brand idea, and brand platform, they're really awkward friends, because one person's brand essence is someone else's brand platform. And I know that, like, if you've come up in the pure brand strategy world, you'll see a huge amount of light and day between the ideas of brand essence and brand platform. But, I've mentioned before that I do feel a lot of people in the industry don't actually know what an idea is, and it carries on. That lack of knowing specific things that we use all the time carries on to this kind of jargon. Jargon is complicated. It's not necessarily good or bad. We're going to use it. The thing is to use it in a transparent way. So these 5 concepts here, I'll call them ideas, they're awkward because they can slip into each other and repeat each other. Sometimes you find one agency using one of them and another agency will use a different concept just to show that they're different and that they don't follow orders or take orders. So a brand essence is a short phrase that tries to anchor how the brand and business exist in the world. In a perfect world, the brand essence would anchor what the business is about. That would be its compass. Are we adhering to these words in everything that we do? But more often than not, it's really at the brand level and communications level in a much shallow way. The problems with brand essences, because there's nothing wrong with them, but the problems are adjective overdose. I've seen so many of them that have grandstanded or grandstood. I don't even know which word is correct there. By using these really long adjectives that don't make sense, and they often smell like perfume ads around Christmas time. They're often, because of that, very vague and quite pretentious. And to see someone come up with one and then lord it over, this vague set of adjectives over other people as if they're the fount of all wisdom that's ever existed, and they were able to boil all that wisdom down into 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, because nobody else could do that. I have a problem with it. It's fun. Treat these things as fun things to do, but the kind of grandstanding stuff really annoys me. Common example, if you've worked on food for any period of time, you will have come across brand essences like this: nutritiously delicious or deliciously nutritious. They're always like that. For Hello Halo, if I were to use a brand essence, I'm going to use sexy scary. Sexy scary. I don't know. That's where we are. Like, they're useful, sort of. Brand purpose is most useful at a business level. It answers the questions, besides money, why do people go to work and how do we serve humanity? They can sound like highfalutin questions, but they don't have to have highfalutin answers. If you look at books such as Obliquity by John Kay and Drive by Dan Pink, both of them suggest that companies that don't exist just to maximize shareholder value, they tend to do better, largely because they attract people who want to work for them. There's that search for meaning that we have, and that's not for everyone. For some people, the meaning of their job is just to earn money, but for a lot of people, they want to earn money and they want to feel that they're doing something useful. So the challenge with brand purpose, I think, is, first of all, it's very debated. A lot of people don't like it on the one hand, and at the same time, there's this missionary zeal for it on the other hand. Another challenge is that it's often very fluffy, like the words don't quite make sense. There's this vocabulary or glossary that you're allowed to use if you're in the brand purpose industrial complex, and I don't think the language that a lot of people use to describe brand purpose and the way that they talk about it does brand purpose justice. And that's assuming that it's not called business purpose. Often brand purpose is a department. It's a CSR, a corporate social responsibility initiative. And again, that sidelines what it's about. Sometimes that is just lipstick on a pig. It's like, let's do some good stuff, because for the past few decades, we've not done a lot of good stuff. And finally, a challenge or a problem with brand purpose is assuming that it's relevant in all communications by default. And that is not a correct assumption, because you need to communicate based on the problems that you're trying to solve. And then if you look at common examples, the number of times I've heard brand purpose and then words like to empower X or to inspire joy, these kind of, I don't want to beat up on people too much, but they make me feel a bit sick in the stomach, because they're so vague and they're so cliche. And when you see a founder or a CEO get up on stage and talk about wanting to empower X, I'm like, what are you talking about? Just because the word empower sounds powerful, it doesn't mean anything. Be specific. So for Hello Halo, just to give you an alternative version of a brand purpose that I think is relatively specific, or specific enough, the brand purpose is to get people to have fun with fear. And don't forget that brand purpose does not have to be noble in the majority of people's points of view. Street gangs have a purpose. Brand promise is what the brand promises to deliver to its customers, and it typically finishes the phrase, "We promise to ... Usually a brand promise will focus on a benefit, not just a feature or a function. A feature is like an attribute or an ingredient of a product. A function is what those ingredients or attributes combine to do. And then a benefit is how what that product does helps people. So for example, a feature of a car is that it has wheels. A function of these wheels is that it can drive you places. A benefit of driving places is that you get to see friends and family more often. That particular little run there is not trying to show off anything unique. I'm just trying to explain feature, function, benefit to people who are not familiar with it yet. Sometimes brand promises are like brand essences, and they just feature a word. We see words like happiness and joy, confidence, empowerment. These things pop up a lot, maybe with some other words around them. For Hello Halo, we've decided that Hello Halo promises to get people to have fun with fear. I'm repeating language here because at this point it doesn't really matter. We kind of know what the brand's going to be about, and it's going to turn on fun with fear in some form, and the rest of it is, it's not just theatrical, it's not just performance. There's utility in going through some of these exercises and concepts. I wouldn't go through 16 of them on every project, but I'm just trying to show you the different flavors of language applied to each of these concepts, hoping that it helps clarify something. Brand ideas and brand platforms are often just variations of a brand promise, brand essence, or brand purpose, and it's not that every project would use all of these. A project might use one or two of them. A brand platform or a brand idea might come from a strategy person, or it actually could come from the creative department and sort of migrate its way up. It's there are no rules with this. Perhaps over time, a loved campaign idea or a tagline starts to become a brand platform or the brand idea. With Hello Halo, it's fun with fear. And here's the deal. These words and these concepts, they move around slides like ghosts sauntering late night through an agency. The number of times I've seen one agency inherit a group of thinking with particular jargon from a consultant or another agency, and then the words move around as they're working on a pitch or on a project, and all of a sudden the tagline's the brand idea, and then the tagline or the slogan gets changed, and the brand essence gets changed. It's just how it is. All this stuff, it moves around, and there's nothing wrong with it. A brand tagline or a slogan, and I'm using the word tagline here maybe incorrectly. I think slogan would be more preferred, but a tagline is typically something that tags an ad. It's like the end of an ad. So a brand tagline is a short phrase that brings to life what the brand stands for, and with Hello Halo, the tagline is play with death. Now this could be the brand platform as well. I don't particularly care. If there are territories within an agency, then someone will care, but it doesn't really matter here because we've got fun with fear and play with death. We've got short phrases that are enough, that are connected, and it's not that there's some incredible insight behind them, although I could argue that there is. So the fact that these words can move around slides like ghosts sauntering late night through an agency, there's nothing wrong with it. The problem is like when you pretend that doesn't happen, and when you pretend that you can't edit something once you've locked it in, and that you pretend that one person's jargon isn't your jargon, so you have to use different jargon with different words to make yourself feel important, and then all of a sudden you get what a lot of clients I deal with face, which is like 5 decks from different agencies with competing jargon, competing concepts, and competing language. And they're like, I don't get it. We've been working on this for 6 months. I'm just confused right now. The reason this hurts your head is because it's designed to. This confusion is how people make money. Don't forget that ideas are fights, and words are how we make ideas, and therefore words are how we fight. And in this industry, there's a cold war of language, which is who has the most fancy jargon and the most credible jargon, and then it's a battle. An advertising idea is an idea that repeats in every communication across all channels. Often, an advertising idea is interchangeable with brand platform and campaign idea. An advertising idea is more than a style, it's more than a mascot, it flexes based on channel, and typically the way it flexes is that there will be, I don't know, somewhere between one and, I'm making the number up, 5 things that come through in a TV script or in a print ad, and those elements will repeat in different channels. And what that's trying to do is cure what used to happen a lot, and maybe it still happens, but what we used to refer to as matching luggage, where it's not the 5 elements or the 3 elements that travel in different channels and flex in those channels based on what people do in those channels. Instead, it's like, hey, can you take that print ad and copy and paste it and turn it into a banner? So that's matching luggage. And then could you put that print ad on a billboard? Could you put that print ad somewhere else, as opposed to the elements that make that print ad and allowing them to come to life in captivating ways in the channels where they go, where they need to appear. So for Hello Halo, we're going with Play with Death, and the advertising idea is we'll show toddlers with adult faces in a living room with a sandbox for a floor playing with things that scare them. And if I wanted to shorten that to focus on the elements that would come to life in other channels, I might say kids with adult faces and scary toys, and I would need to make a decision about whether the sandbox is something that lives in the other channels as well. So in that case, it would be kids with adult faces and scary toys playing in a sandbox. A campaign idea is a subset and shorter term execution of the advertising idea within a particular campaign, right? In cases where the advertising idea and campaign ideas differ. In year 1 of a campaign, the campaign idea and the advertising idea might be the same. Over time, they might change. What's the point in knowing any of this? I don't know. Just at some point, you might be really confused one night and be like, hang on, I feel like I'm getting gaslit by this weird conversation that's happening on this project. And then you get to return to this delineation here. So you can argue that the advertising idea lasts longer than the campaign idea, because a campaign idea lasts for, wait for it, a campaign. How long does a campaign last? I don't know. It depends on what problem it needs to solve and how you're going in solving it. Some people's campaigns can last for a lifetime. Other people's campaigns might last 3 months for summer and then change the following summer. I don't know. You decide these things. So for Hello Halo in year 1, we have Play with Death. We'll show toddlers with adult faces in a living room with a sandbox for a floor playing with things that scare them. That is the campaign idea and essentially the advertising idea. However, in year 2, what we've worked out from research is that there's an audience in old people's homes who have been using these products to come to face with their own impending mortality. I mean, this is kind of a joke and it's dramatic to get your attention, but you know, there is a lot of research into the use of psychedelics in old age to become comfortable with mortality. So it's riffing on this. There's something sincere in it, even though I'm being extravagant and a little provocative in the way I'm putting this across. So year 2, we're going to shift the campaign idea into a second campaign idea. It's called Play with Death from Your Deathbed. We're going to show toddlers with old faces playing with what scares them on their deathbeds in a sandbox. And that's to reach a different audience, an older audience that is trying to come to terms with its own mortality. Then there's non-advertising idea. Look, I haven't heard this one a lot lately. I think a decade or so ago, we used it because so much of the work that we would see in agencies was straight to TV script. So slogan, TV script with a manifesto before all of that. For me, non-advertising ideas popped off in the mid to late 2000s. And a lot of people discuss them as actions, things that a brand would do, or utilities, things that a brand would create that would help people. So non-advertising ideas tend to be acts and utilities a brand does or provides that they can advertise but are more than ads. Perhaps this definition and this concept's no longer useful. Back in the day, an example would have been from Leo Burnett in Sydney, a campaign called Earth Hour, and that idea was to get the world to turn its lights off for an hour. Every year, the campaign execution changed, but the idea stayed the same, and it was a non-advertising idea. It was an idea that existed and could be advertised. It wasn't just, here's the ad, here's the 30-second script. So for Hello Halo, the non-advertising idea here is called Back from the Dead, and it's a program that seeks to rehabilitate communities with a high number of addicts by getting them to play mortality-facing games. I'm not even being that flippant with this as an idea. Then we have content idea, agency or marketer produced media that isn't an ad. So we're defining this against what an ad is, which means you need to understand what an ad is. So a content idea is an idea that resembles journalism or entertainment, and it assumes more respect for people's time. For Hello Halo, we have the content idea Death Play. It's a filmed internet play set around a kitschy dinner theater, murder mystery one Halloween night. Not much of a premise there, but you understand where that idea is going. Social idea is an idea born from the natural behaviors and attitudes of a social network. Social ideas feel native to their environments. They build on existing behaviors and energy, where we can describe energy as the people who are successful in them, and the hashtags, the memes, the language that people use to interact with each other, the topics that they find interesting. And social ideas are built to share. They're built to interact with. So for Hello Halo, we have this idea Death Stares. It's a partnership with a credible website in which we gather well-known people, dress them in scary costumes, and challenge people to scary staring competitions in booths around NYC. And it comes to life in maybe it's vertical video based on what's popular right now and what people are interacting with right now, and it's made to share. It's, again, relatively obvious idea. I'm just trying to show you a thread from all of these different kinds of concepts, which if you look at 16 of them on a piece of paper, and there are way more, but if you look at the 16 on a piece of paper, you'd be right to be confused. All I'm doing is not trying to blow you away with incredible thinking. I'm just trying to show you a line through them and how they relate or don't relate. Platform idea is a technology-driven idea that can become critical to the business. Now, I haven't used this one very often, but I have seen a couple of instances of the idea of a brand platform being used and someone in the room confusing it for a platform idea, where a platform idea to them was an idea that was unique to a particular social media platform. So you might work with your favorite social media company, or not your favorite, but a social media company that your audience uses, and they might come up with something unique for you. And if you're in the media world, I believe that would be called a platform idea. So brand platform and platform idea, they can run into confusion depending on who's in the room. If they have a media or social media focus, you might just want to clarify what you're talking about. Tactic and execution are used a lot. I see tactic largely connected to strategy, whereas execution is largely connected to creative, capital C creative, like the creative work. Tactics are activities or groups of activities that make a strategy happen. We'll talk about them more later. Execution is used more when discussing the creative work, and it could be art direction. It could be anything that seems to be more of a creative decision than a strategic decision. I'm sure there's overlap and people use these words differently however they choose, but that's how I see the difference here. So here we go. I'm going to line it all up for you. For Hello Halo, the business idea is Hello Halo serves Halloween to people whenever they want it. The product idea is a subscription service for people who want to celebrate Halloween once a month, plus that Halloween movie website that we talked about. The brand essence is scary, sexy. The brand purpose is to get people to have fun with fear. The brand promise is the same, to get people to have fun with fear. The brand idea / platform, I feel that they're the same based on what our needs are here. Fun with fear. Brand tagline or slogan, play with death. Campaign idea, year 1, play with death. Toddlers with adult faces, play with what scares them in a sandbox. Campaign idea, year 2, play with death from your deathbed. Toddlers with old faces, play with what scares them on deathbeds in a sandbox. Non-advertising idea, back from the dead, a service that tries to rehabilitate addicts through scary games. Content idea, death play, this is an internet play set around Halloween, that thing that we mentioned. Social idea, death stares, a photo booth collaboration designed to scare the crap out of people. Breathe. That's a lot there. You wouldn't need all of that. I mean, you could use a lot of it. You'd want to make it better. You could use it, most of it, but breathe. You only need a few of these on a project, and a communications plan will help you make sense of many of them. We'll discuss them later. Here are the key things to take away from this. We use a lot of jargon. We use jargon to assert power. Jargon can lead to confusion. When our jargon is defined, we can do better work. And these concepts, they're just tools available to you like yoga poses. Please don't look for the way to do anything. You might want to come up with a few ways that you like to do your work, but don't seek the way out there. I think that's quite dangerous. They are many, but not all, of the types of idea in advertising. You're welcome.